Now this is my first time making a video over my PC modding capabilities and passion that I have. And me knowing the internet, this video is gonna suck. But let's not be so rough at the moment. Now, I'm not a big fancy tech channel with a huge budget or sponsors to cover the cost of PC parts or even proper equipment. Yet. So any parts that I do have are within my budget, or was, at least, what money I wanted to chuck at the damn thing. I actually had a few parts die on me. This was due to a power problem that I will be addressing later. My intentions were to make a fully functioning gaming PC housed in a vintage radio. Now this radio was actually manufactured in the 80s as a model replica from the 1920s. Which is funny, because it had a cassette player on the side, so it kind of protruded out a bit to the point where you could tell it wasn't the real deal. The case itself is still a total work in progress, as you can tell by the lack of cover over the side fan and the big hole in the side of the case where the GPU is. But to give it a Fallout theme, I decided to put some working and broken lights on it. These light bulbs are from some random lamps and even old headlights that were lying around. I made these lights by wiring up an old USB cable to all of them and powering it through the motherboard, so the lights actually turn on when the motherboard gets power. Now the knobs on it don't work, and this one on the far right is actually a button. Yeah, I didn't look too hard to making a working knob. Also, I don't have enough room for the knobs to lie behind the face of the radio. Also, the power LED resides behind the frequency plate, and yeah, it doesn't look good. But like I said, work in progress. Now the parts I had in the case I had lying around from a previous build that I actually won a contest on. The start of this build begins with the ultimate budget processor, a Ryzen 5 1600. I picked the CPU because it was the most powerful budget-aimed processor with a 65-watt total power draw. Next, I grabbed an ASRock Fatality ITX motherboard. Why did I grab this one? Well, it came with an N.2 slot at the bottom, which I still have plans for. It's Ryzen 2000 ready for when I do get a more powerful CPU, and finally, some RGB. Now, it's also supposed to have a steel PCIe slot. Now, whether this actually helps with slot strain, I don't know for sure. Next, I got the Noctua NH-L98 AM4 CPU cooler. Even though I have quite a bit of clearance for a cooler, I opted to keep this cooler on for my last build because it has amazing thermals. The case I put this hardware in before stayed astonishingly cool with this low-profile cooler. Now for RAM. I got what was cheap and fast, but also with really low heat spreaders. This was for the previous build, so I opted for two 4GB DIMMs of G.Skill Aegis DDR4, which are running at a slow, but I guess decent 2400 MHz speeds. Regardless if these have low speed, it's faster than anything I've ever experienced, so it felt like my PC was on speed the whole time I ran the thing. But once I got it in the mail, I realized a problem. They sure as hell had some low heat spreaders, because they weren't there. Yeah, the Aegis RAM has no heat spreaders at all. It just has two stickers on the RAM chips. Now whether these stickers dissipate heat or not, I don't know. The thermals fluctuated too much for me to keep track of them. Now the performance of the Ryzen 1600 is great, but let's put some more oomph in this house. Bam! A GTX 1060 6GB from, well, Gigabyte. Ha! Nope! An R9 272GB for this build. For the time being. See, my GTX 1060 had taken some moisture problems due to the weather around my area, and when I shipped it back for replacement and repairs, they sent it back. They don't cover oxidation. Well, this wasn't the last of any issues I had around with this build. We're getting to that soon, don't worry. Now to power all this furious gaming gear, we need a power supply, which is why I opted for the greatest PSU for small form factor builds. That's right, the HDPlex 400W edition. This part costs more than the motherboard. Oh, but that wasn't the end of it. This is just the power supply, but it still needs a power brick converter, so I had to get an off-market version of an Alienware 330W power brick. But Zeke, you ask, it's a 400W PSU, why don't you get a 400W brick? Well, Billy Brown-Noser, they don't make 400W power bricks because that's dangerous. They only go as high as 330 watts. Now, HDPlex does make a 400W converter, which is great, but it's made to be housed in the case, and it honestly looks sketchy. Plus, I didn't have the space for my previous build to do this, and I didn't want to risk having a f***ing fire in my PC this time. Also, I would have had to shell out another $100 just to buy the thing. What's worse is even if I wanted to do this stupid stuff, it's out of stock, and has been for a while now. Well, it happens. Once I figured out how this mess is best orientated, it ran pretty dang good. I mean, the R9 290 can only push so hard under 330 watts to use for its power-whoring core. I only had a few BSODs from GTA 5, and more demanding games a few times. Actually, it fried my fucking SSD with all my games on it. I'm such a moron. Anyways, when it did freak out, I thought what the problem really could be, other than my GPU. Because sometimes it would still crash regardless if it would run games or not. I tried feeding it, but that didn't work. My cat didn't help with the power issues either. Maybe if I... No... Well... Yes. Okay, that didn't work. Well, with some Google searching, I discovered something. It could simply be a problem with my RAM unseating itself somehow. Which I somehow believed, because it didn't have heat spreaders. Well, that helped, for about 15 minutes. Turns out it's not my RAM, it's just my PSU not forcing enough power for the last-gen power-hungry GPU. I think I have learned a lesson or two from this build. Just save up money, and get the right products properly. I also suspect it isn't the HD Plex, but actually the power brick I'm using. The problem is, I had no issues with the power brick at all. This power brick actually has a unique feature where, when it's plugged into the wall and has power, once it gets plugged into the PC, it will cut off all power to present a surge into the motherboard. I found this to be annoying at first, then I realized this whole video could have been made and edited on my phone. Somehow, I should just appreciate it a bit more. In conclusion, I sure hope this showcase of my Fallout-themed radio PC has intrigued you to maybe make your own custom case. Or not. I plan on making some update videos to show my work on it, and if you liked the video, smack that snail icon or bird or whatever it is underneath, and if you really liked it, hit the red block that makes you my monetary slave.